The audit changed everything, and it started with an email that looked harmless enough to ignore. Subject line: internal review notice. No exclamation point, no red font, no threat, just the tidy corporate phrasing that means someone somewhere has already decided you're going to explain yourself. I was in the break room at 7:18 a.m., balancing a paper cup of coffee in my laptop bag, trying to shake off the kind of tired that clings to you after divorce. Not the tired from crying, the tired from paperwork, from calendars, from pretending you're fine in meetings while your life is being split into assets and liabilities. My name is Tessa Ward, and I work in finance operations for a regional healthcare network outside Portland. On paper, I'm the person who catches errors before they become headlines. In real life, I'd spent the last year catching my ex-husband's lies the same way, one small discrepancy at a time. When the email came in, I almost laughed, because I'd just finalized my divorce 3 weeks earlier. I was finally supposed to be breathing again. My apartment still smelled like fresh paint and freedom, and also like cardboard, because I hadn't finished unpacking. But the email didn't care about my timeline. "Dear Ms. Ward," it said, "you have been selected for an audit interview regarding irregularities detected in vendor reimbursements processed under your user credentials." My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. Under my credentials. The legal and financial anchor hit within the first minute. Because vendor reimbursements are not the kind of thing you misplace. They're tracked, logged, approved, stamped by policy. And in a regulated industry like healthcare, irregularities is a word that can walk you out of a building. I didn't panic. Not yet. I opened the message again, read it slowly, then checked the sender. Internal compliance. A real address, not phishing. My throat tightened anyway. Across the room, my co-worker Jenna waved at me with a muffin like she was celebrating a normal morning. I waved back, smiled the way women learn to smile when the floor is moving under them, and walked straight to my desk. At 7:26 a.m., before my computer finished booting, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I let it ring. It buzzed again. Then a text appeared. "You should probably cooperate. It'll look worse if you don't." No name, no greeting, just a warning that felt like a hand on my neck. My stomach dropped in a slow, controlled way, because I knew that voice even without hearing it. Cole. My ex-husband, Cole Ward, had always spoken in outcomes. Not feelings, not apologies, outcomes. He used certainty like a weapon. Even when he was wrong, he said it like he was right, and people bent around it because it was easier than pushing back. I stared at the text until the screen dimmed, then I took a screenshot. Documentation first, emotion later. At 7:40, my manager, Rhonda, messaged me on Teams. "Can you step into conference B at 8:15? Compliance meeting." No emojis, no softness, just the corporate equivalent of a closed door. I sat at my desk and forced myself to do normal things. Open email, check overnight reports, reply to a vendor inquiry. The motions were familiar, and familiarity is how you keep your hands steady when your brain is trying to race. But in the space between clicks, I kept hearing the phrase, "under your credentials." I hadn't touched vendor reimbursements in weeks, not directly, not since the divorce started getting ugly. The divorce, that was the thread. Cole had been furious when I filed, not because he loved me, because he hated losing access to the part of my life that was clean. My name, my credit, my job. He used to joke about it in front of friends, like it was charming. "Tessa keeps the trains running," he'd say. "I just ride." Back then, I thought it was affection. Now I knew it was a confession. At 8:10, I walked to Conference B with my notebook tucked under my arm like armor. The hallway was too bright, the kind of fluorescent light that makes everyone look honest even when they aren't. Inside the room sat 2 people from compliance and 1 from HR. A laptop open, a binder, a neutral bottle of water waiting for me like this was a routine appointment. "Good morning, Tessa," said Martin from compliance, calm voice, late 40s, eyes trained to look for risk. "Morning," I replied, and I sat. He slid a single sheet across the table, not a stack, not a folder, 1 page. On it was a list of transactions, 8 of them, each labeled as vendor reimbursement adjustment, each for just under $4,000. Each processed late at night, each approved by my user ID. I stared at the timestamps. 11:54 p.m., 12:08 a.m., 12:31 a.m. I was asleep those nights, or at least I was supposed to be. Martin watched my face carefully. "Do you recognize these?" he asked. My voice stayed even. "No," I said. "I did not process those." The HR representative leaned forward slightly. "Were you working remotely those evenings?" "No," I replied. "I was not on call. I wasn't even scheduled." Martin nodded, as if he'd expected that. "We also have a device fingerprint associated with the sessions," he said. "It wasn't your usual workstation." A cold wave moved through my chest. "What device?" He turned the laptop toward me. A log summary. IP addresses. Device IDs. Authentication method, and then the location tag that made my skin go cold. Session geolocation. Vancouver, Washington. I live in Beaverton. Vancouver is 20 minutes away across the river, and it's where Cole's brother lives. The compliance officer continued. "We're not accusing you," he said quickly, the way people say that when they are absolutely considering the possibility. "We need to understand access and authorization." I took a slow breath. "My ex-husband had access to my home network during our marriage," I said. "He had physical access to shared devices. I changed passwords after separation." Martin's eyebrows lifted slightly. "When was separation?" 4 months ago, I replied. "And these transactions are within the last 2 months, he noted. My stomach tightened. Cole didn't need my home network. He needed my identity. He needed a way in. The HR representative asked carefully, "Have you shared credentials with anyone?" "No," I said. "Never." Martin tapped the log. "There's multi-factor authentication approval recorded," he said. "The sessions were authorized." My throat went tight. "Authorized by what?" "By a push notification," he said. "To your phone." I felt my face go still. Cole had never taken my phone. Not openly, but he had done something worse. He'd convinced me to trust him with the boring parts, the settings, the accounts, the just tap approve moments, because he always said he was handling it. The compliance officer watched me. "Do you still have the same phone number you had during the marriage?" he asked. "Yes," I answered, and the word tasted like a mistake. Martin nodded slowly. "We'll need to image your device," he said, "and we'll need you to sign a consent to review relevant authentication logs." I didn't hesitate. "Of course," I said, because I wasn't guilty, but I was scared, not of being guilty, of being framed. At 9:02, I walked back to my desk with a consent form signed and my phone scheduled for IT review by noon. My team's notifications were flashing. Jenna asking if I wanted coffee. Rhonda asking for an update. A vendor asking about a delayed check run. Normal life kept trying to pull me back into routine, but my pulse stayed tight. At 9:11, another text from the unknown number. You always were good at paperwork. Maybe this time you should read it before you sign. My hands started to shake, just a little, because the tone wasn't just familiar, it was smug. I forwarded screenshots to my personal email and to Marissa Chen, the attorney who'd saved my sanity in the divorce. Marissa replied within minutes. Do not respond. Preserve everything. I'm calling you at 10. At 9:30, I opened my calendar and saw the divorce hearing date circled from last month. Cole had stood in court, looked the judge in the eye, and said he wanted a clean break. He said he respected my career. He said he would never interfere. The way he said it, he sounded sincere. That's what scared me. At 10:02, Marissa called. Her voice was calm. Tell me what happened, she said. I told her. The audit notice, the transactions, the Vancouver location, the MFA push approvals. Marissa went quiet for a moment. Then she said, he's trying to create leverage. Leverage for what? I asked, even though my stomach already knew. Money, she replied, or silence, or both. I swallowed. Can he do this? He can try, she said, but logs don't lie, and neither do patterns. Patterns. That word steadied me. Marissa asked, did he ever handle your phone plan? Yes. He put me on his family plan years ago because it was cheaper, I said. Marissa exhaled softly. That's important, she said, because if he had administrative access, he could have duplicated your SIM or rerouted authentication. My throat tightened. Is that possible? Yes, she said, and it's the kind of thing people do when they need your identity without your consent. At 10:18, I looked up my wireless account login. It was still under Cole's email. Of course it was. I hadn't changed it because I didn't even think of it. I felt sick, but not helpless, because now the problem had a shape. At 10:31, IT collected my phone. At 10:33, Rhonda called me into her office. She didn't look angry. She looked cautious. Tessa, she said, closing the door. Compliance is escalating this. My stomach tightened. Am I suspended? Not yet, she said, but we need to protect the organization. If there's any chance your credentials were compromised, we have to contain it. Contain. Corporate language for, you might be dangerous. I nodded slowly. My ex-husband may be involved, I said. Rhonda's eyes flickered. Do you have evidence? Yes, I replied, and I showed her the text messages. Rhonda's expression tightened. Okay, she said. That helps. We'll route everything through legal. You need to stay available. And, Tessa, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix risk, but it meant she believed me enough to not abandon me. That afternoon, the audit widened. Compliance sent me an agenda for the next interview. Vendor relationship review, payment method analysis, device access. It wasn't just about reimbursements anymore. It was about the full pipeline. And that's when my fear sharpened into something cleaner. Because Cole didn't pick reimbursements randomly. He picked what he thought he could make look like me. I went home to my apartment at 6:14 p.m. and sat on the floor because I hadn't bought a couch yet. I stared at the bare wall where a wedding photo used to hang. It was quieter than my old house, and quiet makes truth louder. My doorbell rang at 6:27. I didn't expect anyone. I peeked through the peephole. Cole? He was standing there in a rain jacket, hair perfectly styled, holding a grocery bag like he was visiting a sick friend. My stomach turned. I didn't open the door. He knocked again, gentle. Tess, he called softly. I just want to talk. My voice stayed low. Go away. He laughed lightly, like I was being dramatic. Come on, I brought you soup. Soup. The last time he brought me soup was the week he moved out, after we'd had the fight that finally broke the marriage. He'd stood in the kitchen, calm, and told me I was overreacting to the late-night calls, the missing receipts, the sudden cash withdrawals. I had believed him then. I wasn't going to believe him now. "Cole," I said, "leave." His voice softened. "You're in trouble at work," he said. I heard. I went cold. "How did you hear?" I asked. He paused. Too long. "People talk," he said. "People talk." Or someone called, or someone emailed, or he was already inside my systems. My hand tightened around my phone. "This conversation is being recorded," I said. He exhaled. "Of course it is," he said, a hint of irritation showing. "Listen, if you cooperate with the audit, it's going to get messy. You don't want that." "I didn't do anything," I said. He lowered his voice. "I know," he said. "But the bank, the vendors, they don't care. They'll look at the name on the approvals and they'll assume. Unless you handle it smart." Handle it smart, the phrase he used when he wanted me to do what he wanted while thinking it was my idea. "What do you want?" I asked. A beat. Then, "You're going to be asked about the divorce," he said. "About our finances, about certain reimbursements." My stomach tightened. "Why would they ask about our finances?" He sighed. "Because you're tied to the access," he said. "And access is liability." I stared at the door. He wasn't just visiting, he was coaching. He was trying to control what I would say. I kept my voice calm. "Cole, I'm calling the police if you don't leave." A pause. Then his tone sharpened. "Fine," he snapped, and the grocery bag thumped against my door lightly like a petty signature. "Just remember, I can't protect you if you push me." Protect. Another weapon word. He left. I waited until his footsteps faded, then picked up the bag from outside my door with a paper towel like it was evidence. I set it on the counter and didn't touch it again. At 7:02, Marissa texted me. "Did he contact you?" I replied with one word, "Yes." At 7:14, my phone buzzed with an email from the audit team. "Please provide any documentation related to changes in your personal circumstances that may have affected access controls, including separation or divorce proceedings." There it was. He was right. They were pulling my divorce into my work. I felt sick, but I also felt clear, because if Cole wanted this to be messy, I had to make it clean. I sent them the separation date, the restraining order request that had been denied but documented, the text logs, the proof that he showed up at my apartment. I didn't dramatize. I documented. The next morning, IT returned my phone with a new SIM and a tightened security profile. The IT manager, Anwar, looked uncomfortable. "Tessa," he said quietly, "your number had an active call forwarding rule set up 2 months ago." My stomach dropped. "By who?" Anwar shook his head. "We can't prove the person, but it was set using carrier level management, not an app." Carrier level, meaning whoever had admin access to my plan, meaning Cole, Anwar continued. "Also, your MFA approvals for those sessions were authorized from another device, not your handset." My throat tightened. "Another device?" "Yes," he said, "a clone token, which means someone duplicated your authentication path." I felt my hands go numb. This wasn't just a divorce fight. It was a technical intrusion. Cole had turned my phone number into a key. At 9 o'clock, compliance interviewed me again. This time, they asked about my ex directly. Martin's voice was careful. "Do you believe Mr. Ward could have accessed your credentials?" Yes, I said. He had administrative access to my phone plan. He had shared device access during marriage. He has a history of controlling finances. Martin nodded slowly. We're expanding the scope, he said. We're contacting the vendors. The word vendors made my stomach tighten, because vendors are external. External means subpoenas. External means headlines. At 11:30, Marissa called again. We need to move fast, she said. This isn't just workplace policy. If he accessed systems, it's potentially a criminal matter. What do we do? I asked. We file a police report for identity theft and unauthorized access, she said, and we notify your employer's counsel that you are a victim. Cooperating. Victim? That word felt strange in my mouth, but it was accurate. That afternoon, I sat in a small police station and explained call forwarding, clone tokens, and vendor reimbursements to an officer who looked like he wished crime stayed simple. He took notes anyway. At 4:12, my employer's legal counsel, Denise, called me. Tessa, she said, we received inquiry calls from 2 vendors. They are claiming they received reimbursement adjustments tied to your approvals. My chest tightened. What vendors? Denise named them. And when she said the second name, my vision went white for a second. Northbridge Solutions. I had heard that name before, not at work, at home. Cole used to say it on late-night calls he thought I couldn't hear. Northbridge is going to cover it, he'd whisper. Just give me until Friday. Friday. Always Friday. I swallowed hard. Denise, I said, I think my ex is connected to that entity. Denise paused. Do you have reason to believe it's not a legitimate vendor? I don't know, I admitted, but I've heard him reference it. Denise's voice cooled. We're freezing all payments, she said, and we're bringing in external auditors. The audit changed everything, and it started with an email that looked harmless enough to ignore. The next escalation didn't come from Cole directly. It came from the spaces he could influence without showing his face. On Monday, my access badge failed at the lobby turnstile. The reader flashed red, and the security guard looked at me with that uncertainty that turns you into a question mark. Hold on, he said, tapping his radio. I have to verify. I stood there alone with my laptop bag digging into my shoulder, feeling eyes that passed behind me. After 2 minutes that felt like 20, Rhonda walked down herself, face tight. She's cleared, she told security, then leaned in close to me. We had to disable all badges tied to the approvals until IT reissues them, she murmured. It's protocol. Protocol. A word that means you might be the threat. When I got to my desk, my workstation was locked out. My email still worked, but my finance tools didn't. I couldn't touch the system that had been touched under my name. It was containment, and it felt like exile. At 10:05, Denise's assistant emailed a meeting invite titled External Counsel Briefing. In that meeting, the attorney asked questions that weren't personal, but still felt invasive. Who had access to your home computer during the marriage? Did your spouse ever work in a tech-related role? Have you ever noticed your phone behaving oddly? Battery drain, missed calls, delayed texts? I answered carefully, because every answer was a line that could be used later. Yes, he had access. No, he works in sales. Yes. My calls have been strange. After the meeting, I walked back to my desk and saw an envelope on my keyboard. No return address. Inside was a printed screenshot of my LinkedIn profile, circled in red marker around my job title, and a sticky note with one sentence. People in your field don't get second chances. My stomach turned. This wasn't random. This was pressure designed to make me quit, because quitting would look like guilt. I scanned it, photographed it, and handed it to security without a word. That afternoon, Jenna pulled me aside by the copier, voice low. "Someone called the front desk asking if you were being investigated for embezzlement," she whispered. "They didn't give a name." My chest tightened. "Did anyone answer?" "No," she said. "But people heard." Of course they did. Cole didn't need to win in court to hurt me. He just needed enough noise that my life started to feel unsafe. At 6:40 p.m., my mom called. Her voice was tight. "Tessa," she said, "a man came by your father's house asking questions about you." My hands went cold. "What kind of questions?" "He said he was with a bank, and he needed to verify your employment," she said. "Your dad told him to leave." A bank. Or someone pretending to be one. Cole wasn't just pulling on my workplace. He was pulling on my family's sense of safety, trying to make me feel watched. I called Detective Sloan and told her about the note, the anonymous call, and the visit to my parents. Sloan's tone hardened. "If he's using third parties or impersonation," she said, "that increases exposure. Keep documenting. If anyone shows up again, call 911. That night, Cole sent another text, this time from his own number, like he wanted me to know he wasn't hiding. "You're making this a lot bigger than it needs to be. I can still help you." Help you. I didn't respond, but my silence didn't stop the escalation. It just forced it to change shape. On Wednesday, the auditors interviewed the vendor contact listed for Northbridge Solutions. The vendor contact was a prepaid phone that went straight to voicemail. Then they traced the business address. It was a shared office suite with no sign, rented month to month. Then they requested the invoice backup. The attachments were PDFs, created within minutes of each other, with metadata showing they were generated on the same laptop. That laptop wasn't mine, but the metadata included a username, Kolu. When the auditor showed me that screen, my stomach didn't drop this time. It steadied, because now the case wasn't built on my suspicion. It was built on his fingerprints. 2 days later, the external audit team arrived. 3 people in neutral suits, carrying laptops and calm-like weapons. They asked for logs, approvals, device histories, vendor onboarding packets. They asked for my timeline. And then they asked the question that made my stomach drop. "Tessa," the lead auditor said, "why was Northbridge Solutions onboarded as a vendor with your direct approval override?" Override. I stared at him. "I didn't onboard them," I said. He nodded like he expected that. "The onboarding record shows your credentials," he said, "but the documentation is unusual." He turned his laptop toward me. A W-9 form with mismatched font, a certificate of insurance, dated in the future, a banking authorization, routing to a prepaid payment processor. My throat went tight. "That's not our normal packet," I whispered. The auditor's eyes were steady. "No," he said. "It looks constructed." Constructed. A fake vendor. A fake packet. Approved under my name. Cole didn't just steal money. He tried to build an evidence trail that pointed at me. Escalation accelerated. Compliance pulled security footage from the office on the nights the approvals happened. I wasn't there, but someone else was. A tall man wearing a hoodie, using a workstation in an empty wing. They zoomed in on the badge scan. The badge belonged to me. My badge. I felt sick. I hadn't lost my badge. But Cole had copied keys before. He had taken photos of things, laughed it off. Marissa's voice on the phone later was tight. "He duplicated your badge credential," she said, "or someone did for him." "And now?" I asked. "Now we prove you weren't there," she said. "We prove your location. We prove the device didn't match. We prove the vendor was fake. And we shift the lens back where it belongs. Back where it belongs. On him." At 9 p.m. that night, I pulled my phone's location history. I pulled my Uber receipts. I pulled a restaurant charge from the night of one approval, dinner with Jenna, documented by a time-stamped selfie she posted. I pulled my building's security log showing I entered my apartment at 10:12 p.m. and didn't leave. I built a timeline like a wall, because if the audit was going to change everything, it was going to change it in my favor. The next week, Cole made his move. He filed a motion in family court, not for reconciliation, for financial indemnification. He claimed that because the audit was tied to my job, any liability would impact marital obligations, and he demanded I sign an agreement stating I would not pursue claims against him and would assume responsibility for any restitution. He wanted a signature. He wanted paper, because paper is what cleans criminals. Marissa laughed when she read it, not amused, cold. "This is extortion wearing legal formatting," she said, "and it's sloppy." "How?" I asked, voice shaking. Marissa tapped the motion. "He references the audit explicitly," she said. "He admits knowledge of it. That's not something an innocent ex-husband knows unless he's involved. Knowledge, admitting knowledge. The twist was building toward the 70% mark, and I could feel it. Because my job wasn't just auditing vendors anymore. They were auditing me, and behind me, the shadow of my marriage. On Thursday, Denise from legal called again. "Tessa," she said, "the auditors traced Northbridge's banking destination." My throat tightened. "Where?" Denise paused. "It goes to an account tied to a payment processor used by unlicensed online wagering networks," she said. The room went cold. Gambling. That word surfaced in my memory like a bruise I had ignored. Cole late at night, whispering, the sudden mood swings, the way he'd stare at his phone like it was oxygen. I sat down slowly. "Are you saying he gambled with company money?" I asked. Denise's voice was careful. "We're saying the routing is consistent with high-risk transaction processing," she said. "We're coordinating with authorities." Authorities. That was the moment the audit turned from internal to existential. Marissa called me right after. "Listen," she said, "he's going to try to make you the face of it." "I know," I whispered. "Good," she said, "because now we make him the facts." The auditors requested a formal interview, not just with me, with anyone connected to the approvals. They asked me if I knew any employee in Vancouver. I didn't. They asked if my ex had family there. Yes. They asked if anyone else had motive to use my credentials. And that's when the big twist landed, the one that reshaped everything. The lead auditor slid a document across the table. "Northbridge Solutions," he said, "is registered to a mailing address that matches a private mailbox. The mailbox is leased under the name Cole Ward." My breath left my body. Cole's name, not a cousin, not a friend, Cole. The auditor continued. "Additionally, the IP address used for the vendor onboarding session corresponds to the same residential internet service registered to Cole Ward at his current apartment." The room blurred slightly. He didn't just sabotage me. He left fingerprints because he thought I'd never see the logs. He thought audits were something other people got, not him. Marissa didn't let the twist sit quietly. She filed for an emergency protective order based on harassment and interference with employment. She attached the texts, the door visit, the court motion, and now, the audit evidence tying Cole to the fake vendor. At the same time, my employer's counsel contacted law enforcement. A detective named Kara Sloan reached out to me. Her voice was calm, but it carried weight. "Ms. Ward," she said, "we're investigating unauthorized access and potential fraud tied to your employer. Your name appears in the logs, but evidence suggests your credentials were compromised." I swallowed. "Yes," I said. "I believe my ex-husband did it." Detective Sloan paused. "Do you have reason to believe he gained financially?" "Yes," I said. "He demanded I sign a waiver. He has a history of hidden financial behavior. And now the vendor traces back to his mailbox." "Good," she said quietly. "Keep everything. Don't engage. We may need your testimony." Testimony. Not an HR meeting. Not an internal review. A case. That night, Cole called me from a blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. His voice came through smooth at first. "Tess, we can solve this," he said. "You don't want a scandal." Then it sharpened. "If you keep going, you're going to lose your job," he hissed. "And then what? You think they'll hire you again with an audit stain?" He paused, and his next words were quieter and uglier. "I can make this disappear, but you need to sign." There it was, the admission. I saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Marissa and Detective Sloan. The power reversal began around the 85% mark, and it wasn't cinematic. It was procedural. Detective Sloan obtained a warrant for Cole's devices based on the audit trail and the spoofed vendor records. They seized his laptop and phone from his apartment. 2 days later, Sloan called Marissa, and Marissa called me immediately after. "They found the vendor packet on his laptop," Marissa said. "Templates, drafts, the W-9, the fake insurance, everything." My throat tightened. "He built it." "Yes," she said. "And they found your badge photo saved in a folder labeled Access." Access. He had planned it. And then the final shift arrived. The one that made the audit not just a crisis, but a weapon that protected me. My employer lifted my administrative leave and issued a written statement confirming I was a cooperating witness and not the subject of disciplinary action. My credit union removed a fraud flag that had started to form. HR closed the internal case against me, pending the criminal investigation. And Cole didn't get to rewrite it anymore. At the final family court hearing for the protective order, Cole showed up in a suit, trying to look reasonable. He sat beside his attorney, jaw clenched, eyes cold. The judge, a woman with sharp eyes and no patience for performance, reviewed the filings. Then she looked directly at Cole. "Mr. Ward," she said, "did you contact Miss Ward's employer or attempt to influence an audit process?" Cole smiled slightly, the old charm trying to surface. "Your Honor, I'm just concerned about her," he said. "She's stressed. She misunderstands." The judge lifted a hand. "Answer the question," she said. Cole's attorney leaned in, whispering. Cole swallowed. "No," he said tightly. Marissa stood and played the voicemail. "I can make this disappear, but you need to sign." The courtroom went still. Cole's face went pale. The judge didn't flinch. "Protective order granted," she said. "No contact, no third-party contact, no interference with employment. Violation will result in arrest." Arrest? A word Cole had never thought would apply to him. Outside the courtroom, he tried to look at me with hatred, but it didn't land. Because the audit had changed everything. It had taken his favorite weapon, confusion, and replaced it with a timeline. Logs, devices, mailboxes, IP addresses, voicemails, truth with timestamps. Weeks later, Detective Sloan called again. "Ms. Ward," she said, "we've referred the case to the prosecutor. There will likely be charges related to unauthorized access and fraud." I sat at my bare kitchen table and stared at my hands. My hands were steady, not because I was strong, because I was finally certain. Cole hadn't ruined me. He had tried, but he had done it the way he always did, by assuming I wouldn't check, by assuming I'd be too embarrassed to fight, by assuming I'd stay quiet to keep peace. The audit changed everything because audits don't accept charm. They accept evidence. And evidence doesn't care how confidently someone lies. It cares where the lie touched the system, where it logged in, where it routed money, where it left a file behind. On a Sunday afternoon, months later, Jenna came to my apartment with a thrifted couch and 2 coffees. We wrestled the couch up the stairs, laughing in the kind of tired way that means you're still here. When we finally dropped into the cushions, she looked at me and said, "So, you're okay?" I exhaled slowly. "I'm different," I said. "Better?" she asked. I thought about Cole's voice in that voicemail, about him telling me he could protect me, about him believing my stability was his to borrow. Then I shook my head slightly. "I'm free," I said, because the audit didn't just expose fraud. It exposed the truth I'd avoided. Cole didn't want me. He wanted my clean name. And when he lost access, he tried to make my name dirty enough that I'd come crawling back. But I didn't. I documented. I cooperated. I built a wall out of facts. And in the end, the audit changed everything, not because it was scary, but because it was honest. It made the hidden visible. It made the quiet dangerous. And it reminded me of the simplest lesson I wish I'd learned sooner. If someone relies on you never checking, check. If someone tells you it's handled, read it. If someone says you're overreacting, verify. Because the truth doesn't need volume, it needs a record. And once there's a record, the story can't be stolen again.